Well, I'm sure. Well, welcome everybody. Thanks for your time and thanks for coming this afternoon. Obviously, the worst kept secret in the world that I'm flanked by our new head coach and assistant head coach, Liam Manning and Chris Hogg, and I am genuinely delighted to introduce them to you all today. We went through what was a very rigorous and a very thorough process over the last couple of weeks, and I think we've got two outstanding guys here, to my left and to my right, and I'm just delighted to welcome them to the club, delighted to have them here. Know we've got a lot to do for the rest of the season, and they know that more than anybody. So I'm just going to leave the floor to you guys and to Liam and Chris. You don't want to hear any more from me, so over to you guys and over to Liam and Chris. Thank you.
Do you want to just go with questions?
Go with questions.
Yeah. Right, so go to now, you can lead.
Hi, Liam, Oxford Mail, so hopefully my name will be easy to remember, but the attraction to Oxford United, where did that come from?
I think, obviously, coming here before and the games we've had previously, knowing a lot about the current squad, was definitely a big attraction in terms of when I see the quality of the players and how I see the game and what how I like to set a team up. In order to win games, we're very aligned. We're very closely matched on that front, and then I think outside that, I think meeting Tim and Grant and some of the other directors, I think in terms of where the club wants to get to, and most importantly how they want to get there, is something that aligns with me in terms of the way I want to work, my ambitions. So I think it ticked a huge number of boxes, and one that ultimately really excited about.
And in terms of this coming about, was it you approaching the club, or was it vice versa?
It's one of those. I think the club was inundated with people, I believe, that obviously rightly so interested in taking up the role. So, conversation agent to the club, and then obviously, as Tim said, went through quite a process to obviously get here today.
And you were in the stands on Saturday for the Derby game. In a perverse way, almost, you probably saw what's good and what's bad about the team at the moment.
Yeah, but I don't think it's far off. I think that's the biggest thing. Derby, a team that where they are, and the size of the club, the investment, the experience they've got in the group. Ultimately, when you look at the game, I think they had 4 shots on target and scored 3 goals. If you look at the XG, the number of corners, we had 11 corners to their 2, for example. I don't think it's a million miles off in terms of turning. I think when I look at it, the emotional stability of the group will be one, and then just some tactical, structural things that I think can quickly turn elements of performances where you're conceding chances and conceding goals into stopping those, and at the same point creating more dangerous opportunities to score from.
And your style of play, what can Oxford United fans look forward to with your philosophy?
Yeah, I think that word gets used a lot. I think in terms of philosophy, I'm quite clear it's about winning games, and the way I believe you do that for me and how we work is giving players understanding of what they need to do in each of the phases. We want a team that dominates the ball and plays on the front foot, scores goals, creates goals, but at times you have to be comfortable and understand what you have to do if you're blocking, for example. So I want a team that's smart, that's intelligent, that's adaptable, that's able to solve problems and find ways to win games. And that, like I said, that's underpinned by the majority of the time we want to do that with the ball, creating and scoring goals.
And in terms of sort of formations, you'll be quite sort of flexible in that, or are you quite sort of set on a particular setup?
Yeah, it's twofold formations. I think one's definitely out of possession in terms of, I think you're probably more solid and consistent with formations. Out of possession, in possession, it's more about creating structures and rotations that we give the players real clarity on, and that's where I think we can get some big gains. I think in terms of some of the in possession stuff to transition. So yeah, we're quite flexible on that. I think the biggest thing is getting players in positions where they can bring their strengths to the team.
You've got Chris here alongside you. Was that a key sort of thing for you to make sure that Chris was part of the sort of deal almost?
Yeah, pretty much. I think non-negotiable for me on that front. I think he knows me inside out. He knows how to read my emotion. He knows what to filter back to me, and he's a terrific coach himself. So it was a non-negotiable for me that he came with me.
And what will Chris bring to the side as your assistant?
I think
That's all right.
that was it. Lots. I think in terms of his knowledge of the game, his eye for detail, he knows how I want the game to be played. I think the big thing as well, he'll challenge me as well. He's not someone that will just be around me saying yes to everything. He'll throw curveballs at me. He'll challenge decisions that I make, which for me is really important. That I have that relationship with him where not just him, but the other staff as well. I think having that where we've all got the same goal, we're all working towards the same thing. You know, creating that culture where people are comfortable having a voice and comfortable challenging, ultimately, you know, to make everything better.
And fellow backroom staff that have stayed on at the club, so includes Craig Short, Leon Blackmore Such and Wayne Brown. You know, is that important for you that people in the club, you know, they know the players, they know the team, don't they?
Yeah, definitely. And I can't, you know, obviously did a really good job the last 2 weeks in terms of where the lads are at mentally, and you know, see them in training this morning, the intensity they've been clearly working at. You know, they've done a good job the last few weeks, and I think, you know, really important. You can see straight away that our values are quite aligned in terms of how we are as people. And then, you know, around that, they've got knowledge, they've got expertise, they've got relationships already established with the group, but also knowing the club. So, you know, it's on me and Chris to obviously pick their brains, obviously make our own observations, you know, form our own opinions, but you know, at the same point, it would be crazy not to use their knowledge already.
And the elephant in the room, how do you get the club out of trouble? Because there's no doubt the club is on a really poor run at the moment.
Win games. I think that's the byproduct. I think that when you get in this period, I think there's so much emphasis on the points and the winning games that, you know, your energy goes into that rather than the most important thing for me, which is the actual actions you need to do that. So that's a big thing for me, and focus on turning up and practicing the behaviours that you need to do at the weekend will give you the clarity, the structure, the organisation, and then having it come 3 o'clock on Saturday, so around delivering that and executing the game plan. And of course, we want people emotionally invested. We want people that care. We want people that, you know, are willing to go above and beyond, but at the same point, not to the detriment of the discipline that's required to go and win the match.
Was the club's league position ever a concern for you when you were looking at the job, or in the talks?
No.
And your maybe experience with MK this season, you sort of the season hasn't panned out as the previous year did. Was that ever in the back of your mind?
No. I think look, MK was a really good experience. I think in terms of the funny thing is, I leave MK as such a better coach having had that, you know, challenging 4-month period versus if I'd left in the summer, for example, when your stock's higher. I'm actually a much better coach for having, you know, been through that. You know, and having some time out to reflect and come back in and, you know, evolve. I think you look at it 2 ways. You can be emotional and you know, be downbeat, etc. Or you can go, right, what do I take from that experience that's going to make me a better coach and you know, allow me to progress and become a better version of myself. And that, you know, we did it collectively. We did a lot of visits. We went and met a lot of people. We've watched a lot of games, and I think that's the biggest thing in terms of things about learning and getting better and improving. And you know, we've definitely done that in the last few months.
There's been a lot of talk, you know, behind the scenes about the club and the top 30 ambition. Is that something that's been sort of projected onto you, that the club has these high ambitions?
Not hugely. I think the club's, you know, and the directors are quite clear on, in terms of, you know, what the vision is, but I think most of the energy has to go into the strategy of how you want to get there and how we want to operate. And you know, talk around Carl obviously, you know, long period of time here, which is quite unique, and you know, I think if you look at that, it was mostly positive. So I think we're now at a place where it's, you know, it's an opportunity to kind of freshen things up and rebuild and, you know, evolve, and I think that's, you know, ultimately what we'll look to do, and that aligns then with the vision of where the club wants to get to.
Touched upon Carl there. Did you speak to him at all before taking the job? Were there any sort of conversations there about what to maybe expect or anything like that?
No, he sent me a message since. We had a couple of text messages, but yeah, I didn't speak to him prior in the build-up now.
And one thing I think was of note at your time, MK, was you weren't in charge of transfers. There's a different sort of setup there, isn't it? Is that something that you're looking forward to? Has it even crossed your mind yet that, you know, the transfer window would be something that you can, you know, play around with?
I'm not sure I like the term play around because it's a bit more serious than that, right? But I think in terms of, I think again, it was one of the reflections. I think there was other bits and pieces at MK which I don't really want to get into. It's not the time or place. You know, I have really fond memories of my time there and the people that work there. I think the biggest thing now is addressing the immediate of what we need to do, the short-term element of we need to, you know, flip the team around. We need to start, you know, getting results to match elements of the performances you've seen in the last 2 weeks. And then at the same point, obviously working with, you know, Ed and the recruitment guys to make sure that we're proactive with what we do in the summer. But you know, because ultimately it's hugely important that, you know, we build a side that are, you know, capable of competing.
Just one final one. You've got a strong track record of developing young players, and you've also spent time out in America, out in Belgium. What can those, how do those experiences, how have they sort of guided you, and how have they made you the manager you are today?
Yeah, I think some of the probably the key bits are communication's everything for me. I think when it goes right, it goes wrong, and I think that going to New York, especially with 42 nationalities across the whole academy, I think finding adapting my communication skills to find a way in with a South American versus an American versus a Japanese player. I think how you do that, it definitely opens you up to that, which in academies in England you don't necessarily get, not to the same volume. So I think it's being quite clear, what am I, what do I bring, how do I work, what am I not willing to trade off, and then at the same point, how do I connect, how do I find a way in, how do I motivate that player? And I think that different experience and having to go through that process is what allows you to do it.
Brilliant, cheers.
Thank you.
Gotcha. What's going on here then?
I think it's quite hard. I think it's quite difficult for me to say, having not been in it. I think it would be unfair to pass comment on what's happened previously, having not lived it day to day. I can only observe things from a distance, so I don't think it's right to talk around previous. For me, it's probably more, where do I see I can have impact and maybe change things to get things heading in the direction that we want. So, like I said, I think there's some structural things in terms of the organisation of the team, especially sort of going from in possession to defending. I think there's a structure that we can create that hopefully puts people in positions ready to counter press, to stop counter attacks, etc. So I think the biggest thing for me and where my energy needs to go is where are we at now and what do we need going forward.
You built a great reputation building for the future. You just said the present is everything now. Does that mean the future gets put on the back burner?
No, I think, especially we've got a decent group of staff. I think we've got a good volume of staff. So I think you can run them side by side. I think you probably put more energy into one. So the process we'll go through to win on Saturday would be the same as if things were, the team were in the top 6, for example. It doesn't change for me. That's what I think is really important. Probably different for a fan. I think when you're in it, it can't be an emotional roller coaster. I think that deters you from performance in terms of, you look at City, for example, and what they face, and just the emotional stability they show week in, week out to go and churn out performances to get results. And I think that's a big thing for us, I think, at the minute in terms of the short term, is finding that emotional stability that whatever the game throws at us, our actions are consistent, and we deliver them over and over again because we believe that's what will get us results. And I genuinely believe that will. At the same time, I think we will have an eye on the future. You can't be reactive off the back of everything. I think that's poor practice if you do. So we'll also be proactive in terms of things like the recruitment, in terms of the players we've got in house, in terms of player development. So Huggy, Shorty, and Leon will be looking at players. How do we get them optimal at the weekend, but also how do we make sure that they continue to develop over a period of time as well.
And what's been the reaction of the players to you?
We have to ask the players. No, I have to say I've had a lot of one-to-ones already. I spoke with the players obviously on Saturday before the game, but then was really conscious on it. Shorty and Leon and Brownie to do the game, given that they'd obviously done all the prep throughout the week. I think that's the right thing to do. Spoke with a couple of them on the phone yesterday. Had plenty of one-to-ones today with them, and that which is important for me, getting to know them and developing a relationship with them. And yeah, it seems to be positive. The response to training today was very good. I was really pleased with the intensity, the quality. Despite it being about 100 miles an hour out there, it brought different challenges, and yeah, they seem upbeat, they seem ready to go, and they're up for the challenge.
And the thing that fans want to know, of course, is are you going to keep them in the League One? Are you completely confident about that?
Yeah, you have to. And I do believe in the group, the quality they've got, and you have to look in the group. The group's got a lot of proven League One players that have been there and done it. So the quality's there. It's now a case in terms of finding how we turn it and what are the main reasons. And again, I think some of that will come with time, being around them and seeing them. But I think in terms of the work we've done, we've watched a large number of games. Watched a lot of games back. We studied the team a lot, and then it's now a case of, and that's probably why it was such a big attraction, that it's so close to what we see in terms of the setups of the team. So yeah, I'm more than confident that there's the quality and the experience and the know-how in the group to stay.
Finally for me, there's quite a committed group of excellent potential coaches coming in. What did you say that made them employ you?
I have to ask Tim. I'd have to ask Tim and Grant, I think. I think the biggest thing for me when I thought we came in, we presented bits and pieces in terms of us, the group, etc. And I think I've been coaching a long time now. I started coaching at 21, so I've been doing it 17 years. So I think what you get to a stage is where you're quite clear on you and your philosophy. And I've got a document that it's evolved. It's probably about the 10th edition, which is, as you saw, it's about 600 slides. It's a huge thing, but it's me. And I think that's the biggest bit. It's not a presentation for the interview, it's me, it's how I live, it's what I do, what we do, what we're really clear and aligned on. So I think it was, hopefully that. I've ended up there, so it must have been.
I can think of just add to that actually. I think what we saw was attention to detail, stable, calm, measured approach to what needs to be done both for this season and taking the club into the future. And this is in many ways one of the hardest parts of this process, because this is about the here and now, but it's also about the future. And what Liam and Chris demonstrated to us very, very clearly was the ability to actually get us to the end of this season and retain our league position, but that real attention to detail as to what it means going forward. So I mean that probably answers your question, and that's why they're here.
Thanks.
Are we doubling up the technical? Come on, Des.
You mentioned 3 times the phrase emotional stability. Is that something you just see as important for every team that you have, or is it also something you see that also lacking?
I think for any team, and again I think it's a lot harder not to get too low than it is to get not too high. So it's obviously one we experienced last year in terms of when you're flying, for example, and you're doing really well, how do you stay grounded? It's a lot easier to do that than when you're having a tough time to not beat yourself up ultimately. So I think in terms of, emotions, like I said earlier, I think it's a really powerful thing, and it's something that we all have to have. We have to care, we have to be fully invested, and we have to show it at times. But it can deter from performance in terms of, if you're too charged, the red mist, as everybody talks around, that can take you away. There was little elements I thought Saturday first half, which I spoke to the players around the intent, in terms of I want to do well, I want to win a duel, I want to do that, but actually you forget to put the brakes on because it's the emotion driving you to get there quicker and not the discipline and the technique to slow down and defend properly. So then as a result, you tend to give maybe more free kicks away, which you end up defending. So I think it's a really powerful, but it's a really big thing that I think you have to control, and that definitely comes with age, experience, and time.
You've taken over teams before at short notice, but not this late into a season and not in this situation, and you're very young. How confident are you that you've got the skill set and you're able to do this, to save Oxford this season?
I see age is irrelevant, to be totally honest. I think like I said, I've been coaching 17 years, so it's not new to coaching, not new to developing groups as well as players. I think there's definitely that, and you can have 17 years bad experience as well, right? I think it's irrelevant. I think it's being really clear on what the group needs now, and that's where I think we spend a huge amount of time. Strengths and weaknesses of mine, I'm overly obsessive and I overanalyse and reflect. So I think in terms of that, and then knowing, spend every single second studying the group and what they need at the minute. And then I think a big part alongside that is in developing key relationships. I'm big in terms of psychology, so sitting and getting to know the players. And that's when you look at it at the minute, it's not hugely technical, tactical things. There's players in the group that are capable. It's actually around psychologically, how do we get everybody aligned and pulling in the same direction.
So how many Oxford games have you watched in the last few days?
A lot.
How many? Seriously?
A lot. Not even just the last few days, since the process started, obviously it was one where, a lot, double figures.
Basically you've only got 10, 11 games left. Do you almost have to look at it as a mini-season now?
We spoke about it. There's 30 points to play for. So it's still a large number of points. What I'm fully aware of is we have to pick them up soon. In terms of for the group mentally, for where we're at, I think it will help definitely. But it'd be the same thing for the players. Concentrate on what we need to do to get the points. That's my biggest bit at the minute in terms of for the players especially. We have to make sure that we're disciplined with our organisation. We have to make sure that we're fully committed. We're showing the behaviours that we need to do, and then the result will take care of itself. It's the same if a player goes into a game going, right, I want to score a goal. That's the outcome. Well, actually, if you focus on the actions, I'm going to double the number of times I get in the penalty box, for example. That would increase the chance of the outcome happening. I think it's finding ways in like that ultimately we need to do.
You also said you think look at ways of flipping the team around. Do you mean just in terms of fortunes or in terms of how they play?
Fortune. I think. In terms of structurally, I don't think There won't be major drastic changes to what people have been seeing already. I think it's just tweaks in that. It's more in terms of like the momentum of that psychological aspect of how you feel to where we're going to get to.
Are you surprised Oxford are where they are at the moment?
Yeah. And it's challenges. It's of course we're coming in. It's not going to be all rosy and happen straight away and look great. We might have some bumps along the way. There are bits that we have to deal with. But I think in terms of what we will bring is that stability and that clarity, which speaking with the players, I think they're looking forward to. So again, I think it doesn't just change like that in terms of everything that's happened so far. But I think what is really important is that we come in and we actually train and develop the behaviours that we need and the consistency of it. Because what you see Monday to Friday will then allow you to perform on the Saturday ultimately.
Thank you.
No problem.